Hey everyone, hope you're having a great week. It's your instructor Ryan Bradshaw, and we are talking this week in business law about Chapter 12, Unfair Trade Practices. And you probably realize that business is a interesting topic, that there's a lot of things that do occur in business, and unfortunately there has to be some type of watchdog, so to speak, in order to make sure that things happen fairly and appropriately. Otherwise, there would be no incentive other than ethics to do business correctly and fairly. Businesses would more and more continue to seek profits at the detriment of the consumer. And they've studied this immensely, where if you give somebody an opportunity for self-gain versus helping other people, or lowering your self-gain in order to help others, that ultimately most of the time results in people doing things for self-gain or self-preservation. And so it's instinctual, and because of that, we do have to kind of keep an eye out on businesses, and we do have several government agencies that regulate business and make sure that they do things appropriately, not only from a fairness standpoint, but from a environmental standpoint, from a public health standpoint. There's just a lot of different elements that have to be mitigated or managed. And so I'm going to go over just a brief overview of Chapter 12. And then this is meant to be an introduction to the reading, not meant, once again, to replace the reading. I hope that you will follow up with a thorough reading of the chapter. This is meant, as I said, as an overview. And so unfair trade practices include false representation of a good or service, targeting vulnerable populations, false advertising, tide selling, false free prize or gift offers, false or deceptive pricing, and non-compliance with manufacturing standards. Alternative names for unfair trade practices are deceptive trade practices or unfair business practices. Yeah, if you say that I can create a cheap product that won't work very well, but it'll look good in the box, and I can make a really good infomercial about it, and then I could sell a whole lot of it before anybody realizes that it's really not a very good product, that is deceptive, that's unfair, or basically unethical to do that. And if you want to provide a product, a good or service to consumers, it should have a expectation, or they should have an expectation, a reasonable expectation, that it will perform as expected. You've heard probably the expression lemons in the car business. When you buy a brand new car, there's an expectation that it will perform a certain way. If you ever buy used cars, which I do recommend, a used car will have a as if, or as is, clause attached to it, meaning that you're buying that car as is, because the government has determined that buying a used car is a gamble. There's a number of things that could be wrong with it, and it's unfair to have an expectation that every single thing will work as if it was a new car. So you're buying a used car as is, and understand that there is a no warranty unless there's a piece of the manufacturer warranty still in place. And so in order to mitigate or manage these unfair deceptive acts, we have the Federal Trade Commission Act, which prohibits unfair or deceptive acts or practices in or affecting commerce. Per the rule, unfair practices are those that cause or are likely to cause injury to consumers, those that consumers cannot avoid, and those in which the benefits of the product or service do not outweigh the deception. Deceptive practices are defined as those in which the seller misrepresents or misleads the consumer, and the misleading practice is substantial. I bought a ride-on vehicle for my child for Christmas one year, and we got it in, we assembled it, and within a week or two, it did not work as we thought, as the expectation would be that it would work. You know, you put $100 into a ride-on or some price like that, you have an expectation that it's going to perform. And so we contacted the manufacturer. The instructions on the box said don't take it back to the store, which we should have done. But contact the manufacturer. We contacted the manufacturer, and they gave me the runarounds. And I continued to contact them. They continued to give me the runaround. And long story short, I never resolved that problem. And it just, I kind of ate that one. So, but that's an example of why we need the Federal Trade Commission. I guess I could have really stayed with it and pushed that point. But for $100, you know, maybe if it was $100,000, I might have felt differently about it. So the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is a federal agency that enforces consumer protection laws. Consumers may seek recourse for unfair trade practices by suing for compensatory or punitive damages. Plaintiffs do not have to prove intent. Showing that the practice itself was unfair or deceptive is sufficient. So I don't have to prove that you intentionally made a bad product. I just have to demonstrate that I had a reasonable expectation that it would perform a certain way and that it did not perform that way. So it was, you know, the burden is not that high a bar as it is in criminal proceedings. And so unfair trade practices and examples, product guarantees and false endorsements. Companies must be prepared to honor product guarantees. For example, if a product is advertised with a 50% money-back guarantee, then that must be provided to customers who meet the requirements attached to the guarantee. Similarly, companies may not create false endorsements and testimonials about their products. Looking at that guarantee, I understand that companies have a motivation to offer a guarantee for the peace of mind for consumers, but I also understand that companies have a motivation to pay the least amount possible for those guarantees, meaning that if I have, you know, $1 million worth of products on the street and they all come back to me and want 50% back and I've got to pay $500,000 because of that guarantee, I'm going to do everything I can to get out of that guarantee or to pay the minimum amount, just because it's in my business interest to do so. So unfair advertising, false advertising includes the misrepresentation of a product, service, or price. It may be more expansively defined to include unfair sales strategies, such as advertising one item and then selling another item in its place. An example, one that is higher priced, lower quality, and or less in demand. This method is most commonly referred to as the bait and switch. Hey, come look at this shiny car I've got over here, brand new, $5,000. I get there, there's no $5,000 car, but they do have another car that's $4,000, and it's not exactly what I wanted, but they say, hey, it's cheaper, come get this. So that's an example of a bait and switch. Additional examples of unfair advertising include incorrect pricing, fake endorsements, deceptive guarantees, making false statements, and providing descriptions that exaggerate the performance of the product or service. I'm not going to read the examples. I expect you to go back and read those. So taking advantage of customers, the FTC also pays particular attention to business ventures that target vulnerable populations. For example, some telemarketing efforts employ intense pressuring tactics to get seniors and people who don't speak English, as the target markets. So misrepresenting a product. At times, the FTC may be quite technical in its definition of certain terms. For this reason, companies should be very clear about their usage of various phrases and words. For example, the word new may only be used to refer to a product that is less than 6 months old. Other terms may be subject of debate or litigation, such as whether a lotion will actually rejuvenate skin or whether a tablet will actually cure baldness. Indeed, a sweater should not be called wool unless it is complete. It's a complete composition. There are many examples, so it's important for businesses to have an understanding of the FTC's rules on this topic. Giving misleading price information. The FTC sanctions missing price information as an unfair trade practice. Examples of misleading price information include false sales, in which a limited time offer might actually be available forever, or running a going out of business sale without any plans to go out of business while advertising that items are discounted, although the prices have not changed. Those are misleading. And then failing to disclose pertinent information. Merchants must disclose facts that would reasonably influence the consumer's buying decision to make a purchase. I sold a book online on eBay recently, and before I sold it, I flipped through it and noticed a few pages were missing. Still a valuable book and still sellable, but I disclosed that it had those missing pages prior to the sale. If I had not disclosed that, that would have been deceptive on my part, because I would be selling an item that the consumer thought was whole, however, it had a defect. And so you want to disclose those things in order to avoid problems on the back end. The idea that you would sell something and hope nothing bad happens, that's not really a good business practice. And if you are, I mean, it sounds like fun and games now, but if you are seriously considering going into business, you want to do things on the up and up, because there could be legal ramifications or consequences. You don't want a lawsuit on your hands. So without pertinent information from from customers may be viewed by the FTC as equal in severity to the process of using overtly incorrect or deceptive information. For examples, sellers should always disclose the full price of their products or service before accepting payment for them. So it wants transparency. The next part talks about a little bit of the history of the FTC, created in 1914 to address problems of monopolies and trusts. Following the Civil War, a wave of consolidation and growth among companies triggered increased public debate. Through handshake agreements, issuance of stock, and pooling arrangements, companies could fix prices and outputs, thus effectively stopping competition and raising consumer prices. A substantial number of mergers gave control over key industries to small groups of businesses. 1 second, I need to swallow my drink. There we go. Where companies did not merge, other arrangements were made to have similar effects. Conglomerates control most of the relevant industries that produce household necessities. Goods used in production were also the product of highly concentrated trusts, such as the United States Steel Corporation and the International Paper Company. Concerns about industrialization and a changing economy with shifting norms for personal lives triggered antitrust sentiments. And so, just going to talk a little bit about this, and then I expect you to go follow up and read. But bureaus of the FTC, there are separate bureaus under the FTC umbrella: the Bureau of Consumer Protection, the Bureau of Competition, the Bureau of Economics, and the FTC activities. The FTC investigates issues raised through a number of sources, including consumer, business, and media reports. If the FTC concludes there was unlawful conduct, it may seek several forms of recourse. These include the pursuit of voluntary compliance through a consent order, the submission and filing of administrative complaints, or the initiation of a federal action and litigation. The FTC has the power to create rules regarding widespread industry practices. Rules created in this fashion to address systemic issues are called trade rules. And so this has been a brief introduction to the reading for Chapter 12 on unfair trade practices and the FTC, or Federal Trade Commission. My expectation is that you would go through and read the chapter in its entirety, check out the examples. That's how you crystallize the learning, and that extra exposure really does help that learning to kind of take hold. And then be sure to do the homework. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will be available via email, and if you need to talk, just email me a request for to schedule a phone call, and we'll do that. All right, guys, I appreciate your time and attention, and we'll talk soon, okay? Talk to you later.